Alright, chat. Let us prepare to get terrified of what once was. And, let's take a look-see at what Europe was like 26,000 years ago.
Europe today has become a highly sought-after destination, and based on multiple studies, it's been deemed to be the top choice for movers again and again, with about 70% of the top 10 most desirable countries to move to being located within Europe. Usually, this is attributed to the—
hang on. Okay, wait, for context, this came out 2 months ago. New Zealand, number 1. I have heard a lot of people do want to move to New Zealand. Switzerland is number 2. Canada is number 3. Spain is number 4. Ireland is 5. Australia 6. Italy 7. Netherlands 8. Sweden 9. Finland 10. Interesting. Very interesting. Who put this out? Hang on, who put this out?
Has become a highly sought-after destination, and based on multiple studies, it's been deemed to—
Let's see. Huh. So according to this, everyone in Canada and Japan and Australia wants to move to Japan? People from Mexico want to move to Canada. Russians want to move to the US. This is wonky. Like, that's how I'm reading it. Like, it's saying relocation country, blue is Japan. So apparently, more people in Canada and US and Australia want to move to Japan. Russia, people in Russia want to move to the US. People in Japan want to move to the UK. I think that's Japan, isn't it? No, yeah. Jameson, fair point there. Fair point. We are all a bunch of weebs. We wish. Of course, it makes perfect sense. We're all a bunch of weebs. We wish to go to the motherland of the weeb. No, I said Japan wants to move to the UK. I might have mumbled the last part. No, I think it was I'm saying. I think this is Japan here. Yeah, Japan wants to move to the UK. Oh no, I think I've stumbled over myself. I was saying that the people in the US want to move to Japan. I think I was stumbling over myself. I said Japan. Okay, I was probably just tripping over myself. My eyes were moving faster than my mouth could. That's probably the problem.
to be the top choice for movers again and again, with about 70% of the top 10 most desirable countries to move to being located within Europe. Usually, this is attributed to the general high quality of life, strong social nets, and career opportunities found in many of these countries. However,
great fucking choice for a clip for career opportunities.
Strong social nets and career
Wait, great movie clip choice for great career opportunities. The Wolf of fucking Wall Street. A movie about a stock scam artist. Fantastic fucking choice right there.
Opportunities found in many of these countries. However, for how nice it seems now, it wasn't always like this. And there was a time when humans were present in Europe, but it was the last place you'd want to travel to. And I'm not talking about when the Black Death was going on, although that would have definitely sucked as well. But no, I'm referring to Europe as it was roughly 26,000 years ago. Now, this may sound oddly specific, but there is a reason for this, as it marks the approximate moment that the last glacial maximum occurred, a period when ice sheets were at their greatest extent worldwide. And Europe was one of the places most heavily impacted by this, which alone made the continent quite difficult to reside in, with massive ice sheets spanning across areas greater than countries, and coming as far down as Germany. And these glaciers weren't no ice rink that you could simply walk across, as estimates suggest that these sheets might have been nearly 2 miles or 3 kilometers thick at their deepest points, making traversal essentially impossible.
Oh,
Not to
shit.
mention, it was also brutally cold, with the average temperature being 9 degrees Celsius lower than today, rendering many areas basically uninhabitable to humans. And just as a cherry
Was that a woolly rhinoceros? Yeah, that that was a woolly rhinoceros. Did those exist 26,000 years ago? Was this a thing?
inhabitable to
Huh.
humans. And just as a cherry on top, the coldness also introduced immense aridity, leading to the areas which were spared from looking like the day after tomorrow, instead becoming a mammoth steppe, a harsh biome characterized by a general lack of features, undiverse
Oh.
flora, and unforgiving weather. Yet, interestingly enough, it was actually in this glacial maximum that megafaunal abundance peaked in Europe, leading to a wide range of giant animals living among the steppe. This was both good and bad news for humans, as it meant more potential prey items, but also led to people having to coexist, compete, and battle with numerous predators, many of which are thankfully no longer here today. Some of these extinct carnivores wouldn't be that much of a problem for grown adults, like the European dole or lynx, but a few could cause some serious issues, to say the least, including multiple animals from a single group that we don't typically think of as the rulers of Europe, felids. And this is quite interesting, since if you ask someone why there aren't any giant felids in Europe today, they might say something along the lines of, well, it's too cold. And this theoretically makes sense, since most giant cats nowadays do tend to reside in warmer climates. But let me tell you, this is certainly
Okay, but the saber-toothed cat, one of the most famous felids of this time period, did live in cold climates. The saber-toothed cat had if memory serves, had a thick coat that allowed it to live in these cold climates. My guess is the reason why they don't is because the ice sheets receded. Well, Leo, he did say most, not all. I mean, for God's sake, the lynx is a cold weather cat. And the snow leopard is a cold weather cat. Like, there are cold weather cats still to this day. But when the Ice Age ended, the ice sheets receded and the planet warmed back up again. So my guess, and he may go into this, is the reason why we don't have big cats living in cold climates as much is because the cold climate area shrank. And so the cats that were adapted to living in cold climates, when those cold climates ceased to exist, they adapted over countless generations to basically become the big cats that we know today that typically live in warmer climates. I think it may have ended up just being circumstantial because of the change in climate, and the change in climate did not, like, the big cats did not migrate in conjunction with this. Yeah, that's also entirely possible, Leo. Maybe further down the line, though. It depends on upon what he says of when they went, they disappeared from Europe.
not the reason, as during this unforgiving ice age, Europe was a cat-dominated continent. And of the many genera, the last one you'd have wanted to see was the Panthera spelaea, better known as the cave lion. Contrary to popular belief, the Smilodon was actually not found in Europe during this time, but you could consider the cave lion to be its sort of equal, as it was one of the most important and established apex predators in its habitat. This beast was fairly related to modern lions, and is believed to have diverged from them around 500,000 years ago.
So if this was the cave lion, that means the cave lion was roughly the size of a tiger. Because this looks like a side-by-side comparison of a lion and a tiger. Because tigers are larger sized than lions. Lions may be king of the jungle, but tigers are the physically largest cat of the big cats on the planet. So the cave lion more closely resembled a tiger than it did a lion. Interesting.
Diverged from them around 500,000 years ago, with its more closely related relative having been the American lion, which, mind you, was just about the largest felid to have ever lived. And unsurprisingly, this size seems to have trickled down into the cave lion as well, as fully grown individuals weighed around 400 kilograms or 880 pounds, and were nearly 3 meters or 10 feet long, making them among the largest cats of all time. And exceptional individuals obtained even greater proportions, with Ukraine in particular having had some monstrous cave lions that were polar bear sized, weighing over
Jesus! Oh, Kirby! Oh God, Kirby! Huh? Goodbye! Yeah. Yeah. Kirby, your timing! At least wait till I'm not expositing! Chandrak, shut up! We're not gonna talk about that. And the tornado? It's not even chunky. That's the thing. The cat, this cave lion is lean like the lion, but is physically as big as a polar bear. That's not chunky. That's just fucking big. It kind of makes you wonder, could a cave lion take on a polar bear? Yeah, Revan, that is a good term for it, a dire cat. That is a very good word for it. It does make me wonder, could one of these guys take on one of these guys? Yes, gray matter. Yes, that is a much better expression. Imagine if one of these things was around today.
over half a ton. However, fossils do show that over time, they did tend to get
Regular
smaller,
lion, Leo, yes.
which you'd think would be great news for humans, but in reality did not mean much, as the youngest cave lion remains still show that they were about the size of modern lions, so still extremely deadly to say the least. And their lethality was exponentially increased by the presence of limbs, claws, and teeth that were all relatively larger than those even seen in tigers, allowing them to hunt various megafauna like mammoths, reindeer, and even cave bears, all of which are confirmed prey through known specimens. On top of this, certain Neanderthals and Cro-Magnon, aka European early modern humans,
It's a cat, but dire.
You call it a dire cat, I call it a snuggle buddy. I just want to snuggle with one.
are sometimes found with bite marks that match the teeth shape of cave lions, strongly suggesting that this cat had a taste for our own kind. And its antics seem to have given it a pretty poignant and fearsome reputation, leaving a deep imprint on various groups of people, and leading to them often being depicted in cave art. And funny enough, it's this portrayal in art that has actually helped us learn more about this creature. For example, humans often depicted without a mane, and sometimes with other cave lions, which suggests that at a high level of socialness. And amazingly, we also know what color this cat was, since
Walk. Can you imagine an entire pride of these cave lions on a hunt? Can you think there are few things more terrifying to the mind than a full pride of these things? A cave lion hunting party of between 5 to 10. What the fuck? I don't think even a mammoth couldn't stand up to that. And mammoths are even bigger than elephants. Well, America, what do you mean by work like modern mountain lions? Seth, that kind of brings up an interesting question. How would a pride of cave lions do against a pack of Utahraptors? Because Utahraptors are probably the closest approximation of a real-life dinosaur to the velociraptors from Jurassic Park. So how would a hunting party as cave lions do against that pack of Utahraptors? I wonder.
Preserved specimens were found with fur intact, letting us know that in cubs, it was yellowish-brown, with adults presumably having a very thick and dense undercoat made up of the same yellowish hair as well. And as its nickname suggests, it has been found in caves, which is very unfortunate for our distant ancestors, as that was prime real estate for them. That being said, cave lions did not actually live in caves that often.
The most successful feline is the domestic house cat.
Incorrect. If you're referring to a hunting cat, what is it called again? It's an African cat. I forget its full name, but there is, yes, that's the one I'm thinking of. There is no, not the serval. Black-footed, yes. The black-footed cat in Africa, which is the size of or even smaller than the average domesticated house cat, has the highest hunting success rate of any a predator animal on the planet. The black-footed cat of Africa has, I believe it's a 60 or a 65% success rate when it hunts. That is higher than any predatory animal on the planet. Okay, but house cats are not the... Okay, house cats domesticating human species is not the same thing as having a successful success rate for hunting. African wild dogs do not have the same success rate, Tornado. African wild dogs have, what was it, a 45%? Was it a 40 or 45% success rate when hunting? I think? No, the African black-footed cat is the most successful the most successful predator on Earth. 80%? I thought it was less than that. Oh, okay. Okay. This is true. Dogs are cats, and my guess is they are pack hunters. The black-footed African cat is a solitary hunter. So, difference when it's a pack hunter versus a solitary hunter. That is a factor.
It's quite rare to find remains in one, with the truth being that they generally preferred open steplands, grasslands, and woodlands when available. Not to fear though, because any human venturing into a cave would still have an abundance of animals to watch out for, including another panthera that's often swept under the rug, the European leopard, also known as the cave leopard. This cat actually put its cave nickname to good use, and specimens are many times found in them, notably the smaller caves, likely leaving the bigger ones to larger predators. It seems that European leopards like to use these caves for shelter, or perhaps more insidiously, as a dumping pit for fallen prey, where they could then feast in silence and accumulate mounds of...
Okay, it's not a dumping pit, it's known as a cache. Let us get technical. The place where where animals store their food is not a dumping pit. It's called a food cache. Okay? Let's not sully the phrase.
Victims and bones over time. There's also a fairly strong belief that despite being smaller than other Ice Age predators, the European leopard was still a major nuisance to humans based on what we know about not only other extinct relatives of it, but also living ones, who, mind you, have routinely become man-eaters, with one famous example being a small individual who actually came in second place for the most confirmed human kills, numbering over 400 victims.
Oh wow.
And this problem might have been more serious with European leopards, due to both a lack of firearms and their increased sizes, with matured specimens often being 40% larger than any living leopard. And even with this size increase, they still retained a high level of agility, with their skeletons remaining very similar to those seen in the Persian leopard,
deadly.
which can carry off unsuspecting prey in mere seconds. And the effect of
Jesus! What the What the fuck? Where is this? And I
in mere
tried.
seconds. And the effectiveness of European leopards apparently
That wasn't casual? And I tried. Move the camera. What are you talking about? The image. God.
and the effectiveness of European leopards apparently caused problems for non-humans too, as their
To show it. Oh.
unsuspecting prey in mere seconds. And the effectiveness of European leopards apparently caused problems for
Oh,
non-humans
stop
too,
showing it.
as their arrival in Europe,
Okay.
approximately 1 million years ago, is preceded by a
Sorry.
drop-off in European jaguars, who then went extinct before the last glacial maximum, after which leopards became extremely abundant on the continent, being found virtually throughout all of Western Europe. But as a wise man once said, quality over quantity. And this is shown by one animal who proved you don't have to be widespread in order to leave a strong impression. And this was the Homotherium. This apex predator really needs no introduction, but most people don't know that at this point in time, it was actually the last saber-tooth standing in the Eastern Hemisphere. And for a long
it's
time,
saber-tooth.
paleontologists thought that it had actually been snuffed out 300,000 years before the present, and thus never met Homo sapiens in Europe, who arrived about 45,000 years ago. But unfortunately for those humans, this wasn't actually the case, and this idea was upended when a lone jaw fragment was found
if you're talking about,
in
hang on.
Europe,
This is from a movie.
who
This is
arrived about
from
40.
What was this? Was this from 4 million? I think was this movie? It did not do well. Oh, 10,000. Yeah, 10,000 BC. That's right. You're right. Yeah, it was 10,000 BC. It was not very well received. Apparently, it was not a great movie.
5,000 years ago. But unfortunately for those humans, this wasn't actually the case. And this idea was upended when a lone jaw fragment was found near the North Sea, which dated to about just 28,000 years ago, implying a much slower demise, and making meetings between it and modern humans pretty much guaranteed. Although thankfully, it was likely a rare meeting, since Homotherium made its final stand in a very northern area that was bitterly cold and icy, therefore not a place you'd expect to find many people. And this separation was likely for the best, as Homotherium was a very well-known human killer, having preyed on virtually every kind of human and human-like animal for hundreds of thousands of years. And let's just say, it did this with surprising ease, thanks to its shorter, yet more durable canines that could punch straight through bones. And the fact that its lion-like size was multiplied through its practice of hunting in coordinated packs ensured that any unwary or unarmed human stood basically no chance. And to add
whatever this Chad, am I crazy, or does that look like a very disproportionate cat? Like, I realize that big cats have strong shoulders, but am I crazy, or does that look off? Yeah, that looks like something, that looks like the Liger meme. Or it looks like the Giga Chad big cat meme. Yeah, I don't think the artist quite got that one right.
stood basically no chance. And to add fuel to the fire, a struggle with this saber-tooth was made even more futile thanks to its adaptations for taking out animals far, far larger than any primate. Mammoths, to be exact. The internal skeleton of Homotherium was remarkably bear-like, allowing it to tussle with giant...
Hang on. I want to see how the... Okay, so... How is it different from other sea lions? They said it's remarkably bear-like. How is that different from felids? From the standard felids? I'm not seeing. But they like. Maybe I'll explain further, but I don't understand. Maybe it's the larger rib cage. I don't know.
Like, allowing it to tussle with giants. A belief that was
Possibly
verified by the discovery
American,
of
yeah.
multiple sites that yielded both Homotherium remains and hundreds of damaged mammoths, plus other large animals as well. And guess what? These sites also revealed that Homotherium had a rather horrific habit. It turns out that it liked to dismember animals before consuming them. Nice.
Oh God.
So surely, a bear like Sabertooth is a clear sign to stay away from the North Sea. And yet, it wouldn't really mattered much what you did, since along with the felids, the last glacial maximum was a very cozy time for bears, who shared in the domination of Europe. Now granted, bears are still common in parts of Europe today, but the contrast between today and
Okay, chat. Tell me you would not shit yourself if you saw this come running at you. Full speed like this.
bears are still common in parts of Europe today, but the contrast between today and 27,000 years ago is day and night. As back then, multiple kinds could be found in every country and in every environment. This included not only the extant brown bear, but also polar bears, which, while only temporary residents now, were permanent residents of Scandinavia back then, where they were among the largest predators. They were also a bit different back then physically too, as there is a chance that the Ice Age gave rise to a rather freaky subspecies of polar bear that was really a tyrannosaur of all things.
What?
Kind of. And no, I don't mean a mammal-dinosaur hybrid, but simply a polar bear dubbed Ursus maritimus tyrannus, meaning the tyrant maritime bear. To say the subspecies is controversial would be putting it lightly, as its entire existence relies solely on a single ulna found in London. This ulna was absolutely massive even for a bear, who according to a Finnish paleontologist had to have represented a giant polar bear that based on the bone was over 1.3 tons in weight. In other words, 20% heavier than the heaviest recorded polar bears in modern times, and making it among the largest carnivorous mammals to have ever lived. But not everyone has been quick to accept a tyrant polar bear, with some thinking that this enigmatic bone belonged to abnormally massive brown bear, who were in general larger at the time and well known in the area. Though, I guess because the size is not what's being questioned, it didn't really matter to humans what kind of animal it was, as a 1+ tonner is bad news, regardless of the species. And let me tell you, there are plenty of less controversial bears to worry about as well, with the chief among them having been cave bears. To the common ice ager, this bear might have seemed like a giant brown bear, who just happened to pop up a lot in caves. Yet it wasn't actually a subspecies of brown bear, nor was it a descendant, instead having descended directly from the Denninger's bear, which had popped up about 1.8 million years ago. And at some point during this evolution, this ursid beefed up, becoming similar in size to the giant Kodiak bears of today, with which
Okay. So is this the Kodiak? Which one's the Kodiak in this visual? Is this the Kodiak or is this a Kodiak? I'm thinking it's this one here. The Ursus arctos is the Kodiak, correct? So Ursus spilius. All right, somebody look up. Someone look up Ursus spilius and someone look up Ursus arctos and tell me which one the Kodiak is. I'm thinking it's this one. We're thinking the spilius is, so the spilius is the Kodiak bear? Yeah. So the cave bear, okay. Bit leaner. Okay, all right, it is the arctos. Okay, this is the Kodiak. I was right. So the cave bear, so this is the cave bear. It's a sick boy, especially those hind legs. This guy has got some thick hind legs.
With which it shared some skeletal similarities. It was perhaps thanks to this size, and their thick coats that were perfectly adapted for the cold, that cave bears became one of the most widespread and populous animals around during the last glacial maximum, and were almost comically common in caves, with sometimes single caves containing hundreds of thousands of bones, leading some paleontologists to think that early Europeans might have witnessed literal herds of bears during
their herd of bears. 26,000 years ago. I like him. Give me big boy. Come here. Chat, imagine stumbling across a herd of any bears of this number 26,000 years ago. You would shit your loincloth if you stumbled across this.
Their lifetime. And because the bones are so ridiculously numerous, civilization has known about their existence for a long time, and in the 1700s, believed they were either unicorns or dragons, while during World War I, they indirectly served by providing troops with phosphate. And of course, with such numbers, one has to wonder, what kind of impact did these massive cave bears have on other animal populations? And this can be debated, as while these guys were definitely visually scary, they might have just been big ol' softies, and were strictly vegetarian, a hypothesis based on their lack of 2 to 3 premolars, which are typically seen in other species. However, recently, new reports have come out to suggest that they actually had a diet much like living brown bears, depending on where they lived, with some having isotopic levels similar to the vegetarian mammoths, while others are more omnivorous, getting around 40% of their calories from meat. So basically, if you saw one, I'd very much suggest resisting the urge to pet it, because even if you lucked out and stumbled
But if not friend, why friend-shaped? If not for cuddles, why cuddle-shaped? Huh? I ask you this. But they're cuddle-shaped. I want to cuddle. Yes, pet the floof. Must pet the floof. Machinist. Do not talk about the floofy being delicious. The floop is for cuddles, not food.
stumbled upon the vegan ones, they were still quite feisty, with specimens routinely bearing broken backs, something likely attributed to intense fights during mating season.
I must cuddle.
And not to mention that multiple lions are known to have been killed by them during incursions into their dens. So no matter how cute they are, best to avoid them.
No.
And these weren't the only cute but capable killers in these parts, as while not as established as today, Ice Age Europe did have a handful of canids who could do some real damage.
Here we go.
Just like bears, this included species both that are still kicking, as well as those that are fully extinct, which, surprise surprise, includes the, can you guess it, cave wolf.
The duck.
These canids were a lot like modern ones, and were genetically very similar to wolves found in Siberia. Yet because of the extreme weather, they evolved to take down larger prey than their relatives, leading them to develop sturdy and robust skeletons and enhanced jaw structures, indicating a more powerful bite than what's seen in living wolves. And it seems that they like to use this ferocious bite quite a bit, as their teeth often bore extensive damage not seen in other wolf subspecies, which actually indicates a habit of cracking open bones. These big doggos also sometimes became specialized bear eaters, and would venture into caves where hibernating bears slept to take advantage of the situation. But on average, steppe bison were the preferred treat. So far, every tested population of cave wolves has been found to be hypercarnivores, and it certainly didn't help our relatives.
How big were they though? I wanted to get into that. Like how big were the cave wolves in comparison to modern day wolves? Like they were stronger. They would literally eat hibernating bears, but how big were they in comparison? That's what I want to know. Yeah, that's what I'm hoping for. We have yet to see some size comparisons. I want a size comparison.
Tested population of cave wolves has been found to be hypercarnivores, and it certainly didn't help our relatives that they were 10% larger than modern wolves as well.
Okay, so not overly much bigger than the gray wolf. Granted, the gray wolf is big. People often think that the gray wolf is like about the same size as, say, like a husky. That is incorrect. A gray wolf is about twice the size of a husky. Bro, yeah, 10% bigger is still, yeah, given that they're pack hunters, yeah. Wolves, big. Wolves, big animals. It is underappreciated. Yeah, I don't think this is showing accurate. A gray wolf actually a gray wolf stands taller. Head height of a gray wolf is probably roughly at about here. This chart seems inaccurate. They are actually larger. They're taller than this. Like not by too terrible much, but they are bigger. The only dogs that are probably roughly the same size as the gray wolf would be more of the larger breed sizes. Malamute would come close. Saint Bernard comes close. From a height perspective, the wolfhound comes close, but they are Great Pyrenees, yeah. Bull Mastiff, I would say, yeah, but what, like, wolves, well, until you actually see one, you can't appreciate how much bigger they are than you think in your own head. Because very often they use dogs and to represent wolves in like movie and TV. So you think they are dog height and size. But they're actually about 1.5 to 2 times as big as the standard dog that is used in a movie to represent a wolf. They are fucking big. No, that is off. I'd say gray wolves, if they're standing tall, I think the shoulder height of a wolf is 3.5 to 4 feet. I think, if I'm remembering my numbers correctly, it's about 3.5 to 4 feet shoulder height on the gray wolves. They are fucking huge. And the cave wolf is slightly bigger. That's not granted, I still want to cuddle. I 100% still want to cuddle the wolf, but that's a big boy.
In a similar fashion to many of the other predators found during the last glacial maximum, they managed to spread out a bunch and were found throughout Europe's mountain ranges in particular, and the Mediterranean as well. But for all their abundance, not much is actually known about their relationship with humans, a mystery that cannot be said for the next animal, which again, for the umpteenth time, had cave in its name. And this was the cave hyena. Of all the animals mentioned so far, this pack hunter had arguably the biggest beef with us. And that really wasn't good, considering that this was not your typical hyena. Sure, from a distance, it looked a lot like your average hyena, at least according to cave art. But the moment it got on top of you, game over. Because this predator, on average, was the same size as the largest jaguars around, with bigger ones weighing over 100 kilos or 220 pounds, and sporting a more down-to-earth build, literally, which gave it great balance. And of course, it also had your standard hyena bone-crushing bite that allowed it to easily bust open bones and access the oh-so-sweet bone marrow within.
Yeah, and hyenas are probably one of the most misunderstood of the canids. Hyenas caught a really raw deal when it comes to their characterization to people. Hyenas are hunters, and it's, what are they? It's right. They have a matriarchal society. Disney, you can categorize Disney as making them. Yeah, they're categorized as scavengers, and while they will scavenge, kind of like any animal will, even like wolves will scavenge, lions will scavenge, like any predator will scavenge. But they made it sound like hyenas all they did was scavenge. Hyenas actively hunt. They are an active hunting animal that, if they need be, they will do scavenging too, but that's not all they do. And they caught a raw deal. I think they are probably one of the more I seem to recall that hyenas are actually more social than most pack animals. They are a matriarchal society. That is unusual. But I seem to recall reading something about how they are one of the more social, one of the more social animals in their, pack or pride structure. And that's not often discussed. They've they've gotten such a bad deal in popular media, and it's starting to come out more about how they actually are, and people are starting to realize, oh, Hollywood gave them a raw deal, and they're starting to understand how how they actually behave, and that what hyenas are actually like.
And just to make it more OP, they like to stick with friends and family as well, possibly roaming the lands in groups of up to 100 strong. All this combined made it quite the package, and the cave hyena was among one of the most dominant carnivores in Europe, if not the most, during its existence, and it had a striking impact on nearly every other so-called apex predator, with bears, crazily enough, being one of the more common victims. Hyenas in Europe also totally turned the idea of lions being king on its head, as the two routinely fought, and based on fossils, the hyena came out ahead in the vast majority of cases, with many fallen cave lions not even having consumption patterns, meaning the cave hyenas killed them simply because they didn't like them.
So the hyenas were a bit of a spiteful kind of group, where they just killed the lions because they didn't like them. That kind of puts things on its head a little bit.
And this sort of treatment was also extended to humans, namely Neanderthals and modern humans.
Yeah!
By the time of the last glacial maximum, Neanderthals were already extinct, but their interactions give us more info on what kind of menace hyenas were to humans overall, and the evidence is rather gloomy, as multiple bones in caves and open environments were found cracked and munched up, with hyenas being the likeliest perpetrators. Moreover, there might have even been many wars going on during this period, as certain caves were known to alternate between hyena and human occupation, implying that each group would at times chase or kill off the inhabitants of the cave. And this war did not even cease in death, since hyenas would occasionally raid burial grounds, feasting on the already deceased people within. In fact, their competition with our kind was so fierce.
There's the scavenger mentality where I was just talking about here.
The already deceased people within, since hyenas would occasionally raid burial grounds, feasting on the already deceased people within.
And there, I think, in lie all of these descriptors may be why these stories maybe came down through the ages, and who knows, maybe this is why hyenas got the reputation of being scavengers versus hunters who happen to scavenge. Hyenas are probably one of the most misunderstood predators around. And yeah, we can blame Disney for it, but I'm pretty sure they got misclassified as a scavenger species before Disney ever produced The Lion King. I'm pretty confident that that people had the wrong idea about hyenas well before that movie came out, and the movie did nothing but solidify that ideal.
In fact, their competition with our kind was so fierce that certain paleontologists believe that cave hyenas in Asia kept humans from crossing the Bering Strait, as it was only after their extinction that people started to show up in North America.
Interesting.
So it really doesn't need to be stated that these guys were unneeded company for the humans of the time, especially when considering how many other unfriendly faces there were. Now, with all this said, just because there were a ton of predators does not mean that prey animals during that time were easy pickings, as the last glacial maximum created some pretty bad—
Remind me, did Kimber the White Lion feature hyenas that predates the Lion King?
I do not know, because I never saw Kimber the White Lion, so I have no idea. Where did they go in Asia that they're not really that present now? Hang on.
Now, with all this said, just because there were a ton of predators does not mean that prey animals during that time were easy pickings, as the last glacial maximum created some pretty badass herbivores, with a handful being just as tough or tougher than any of the predators, nicely exemplified by the woolly mammoth. This elephantid was an absolute unit, and on average comparable to large African bush elephants, though size did vary depending on where it lived.
Whoa, hang on. Why? Look at these sizes. So you got the woolly mammoth, the woolly mammoth. You have the Jeffersonian mammoth, and then the Atherton mammoth. God damn. And bear in mind, the woolly mammoth? Wait, their size compares, okay, so it looks like their compares, so the woolly mammoth was probably a bit closer to a standard African elephant, because this looks like they're comparing an African elephant to the Jeffersonian mammoth. So that's what they're comparing here, and the African mammoth was even bigger. Gore, it's an excellent question. Considering like this, what elephants can live to be. Elephants today can live to be what? Can't they live to be like 50 or 60 years old? Am I correct that yeah, that elephants can live to be 60 years, I think? And honestly, I could see mammoths living as long. I don't think that they had less of a lifespan than the African elephant. Realistically. Yeah, I mean, if it's you know, if they had if the predatory threats were greater, you know, then I could see that. If there was not a predatory threat, I would say that they could probably live just as long as the African elephants do today, honestly.
This heftiness made adults pretty well protected, to say the least. And it helped that each one sported a thick coat that not only helped against the cold, but also doubled as armor, preventing attacks from penetrating too deep. Plus, it'd be hard to miss their giant curved tusks, which were actually much longer than those seen in living elephants, with the longest recorded ones coming in at 4 meters or 14 feet. But because of their curviness and length, the woolly mammoth likely did not stab or pierce threats as a modern elephant can, but rather would smack threats from the side, causing catastrophic blunt force trauma. And we know it had the power to do this, as mammoths are often found with cracked or broken shoulders, indicative of tusk strikes from others of its own kind. And just to make them more useful, these built-in wrecking balls could also be doubled as multi-purpose tools, as they could dig through snow and move items out of the way. And ultimately, with this array of traits, mammoths became an integral part of Ice Age Europe, and were unusually widespread, even when compared to the other successful Ice Age mammals. And while they were formidable, making hunting them a very difficult task, the presence of mammoths was actually good news for humans, as their meat provided food for long periods, and their bones and fur were used to craft a variety of things such as tools, shelters, and even create art. And another almost equally formidable animal that gave similar benefits, but on a smaller scale, was the woolly rhino. Like its elephanted counterpart, this beast was easily found, and is actually the most widespread rhino we know of. In addition, it was also among the largest, with specimens rivaling the biggest rhinos of today, weighing some 3 tons when fully grown. And now, while this isn't as impressive as the woolly mammoth size, the rhino had a weapon that was arguably more intimidating than their tusks.
Wait. Tokyo, what are you talking about? I didn't gift anyone Discord Nitro. Tokyo, Tokyo, if you just got gifted Discord Nitro, that wasn't from me. I haven't gifted Discord Nitro to... Oh. Ah. Okay. Okay, gotcha. I see what you're saying. Okay, gotcha.
And that was its massive horn. And to be exact, it actually had 2 of these horns. Yet it was the front one that you really needed to watch out for, because it had a mean point at the top and was well over half.
Chat. When you look at this face, yeah, I think the natural conclusion would not be to worry about the smaller horn further back away from the target, but the big one sticking out from the snout that's much closer to your head. Yeah, that's kind of obvious. This one's the more dangerous one. And, Zeb, I will agree. he does look snuggleable. Like, okay, let's be honest. Every one of these animals from the Ice Age look like snuggle bunnies. It's the fur. Like, every single one of these Ice Age animals had fur that turned them into snuggle bunnies. I would happily snuggle any of them because I bet their fur was so warm, and like, you get, I would want to snuggle any of them. Even even the predators. Like I said, if they're not smuggleable, why smuggle shaped?
That you really needed to watch out for, because it had a mean point at the top and was well over half the length of a human. And of course was also backed by a ridiculously powerful and robust head that let it ram this horn.
Oh my god, this image. Why are you putting me in the cage? This is not cage worthy. This image, surprising that I can actually imagine this happening in the wild. That a woolly rhino is just chilling out and a couple birds land on the horns and just like, sup, we're gonna chill here for a while. And the rhino's probably like, okay.
Born into things with crazy power, which is perhaps why it wasn't a common prey item for humans. And the woolly rhino was joined in this hall of fame of prehistoric weapons by a deer of all things. The Megaloceros, who happen to be the largest deer to have ever lived.
Oh.
Now, because deer aren't super big currently, the biggest of its kind may not seem so exciting. But if you got a look at this thing, you would have been shook, as it stood 3 meters or 10 feet tall and could...
Wait a second. He's referring to it as a deer. That this is an elk. Yeah, okay. Are we mischaracterizing here? And Eggy Donor, thank you for the follow. Why do I feel like he's grossly mischaracterizing this? Yeah, I was gonna say, like, this is like it's being categorized as an elk. But you're right, it 100% looks like a moose. And machines, that's what I'm thinking also. That immediately struck me. It's like, he's saying it's a deer. But this is an elk.
Who happen to be the largest deer to have ever lived. Now, because deer aren't super big currently, the biggest of its kind may not seem so exciting. But if you got a look at this thing, you would have been shook, as it stood
Yeah, that... Elk, I think, is different. Elk, is different from a deer. It's, yeah, there is a difference. I think they're the same genus. I don't believe they're the same species. So they are different, but you're right. Like, this what I was gonna say is this has me wondering. They're classifying as a deer, but could have this been what's the word I'm looking for? A predecessor to the moose. Because based on the size and especially the rack, that has me wondering if these are the precursors to the modern moose. Because they would have retained that size. I don't know, Revan. I do not know. I mean, this is 25,000. This is like 26,000 years ago, so maybe not through evolution, maybe through grading? I don't know.
3 meters or 10 feet tall and could clock in at almost 1 ton, making it about the same weight as the heaviest horse breeds.
Yes, they absolutely are. Like, Leo, I'm not saying that they're more closely related to moose, that they are more closely related to deer. It's just the size and particularly the shape of the rack makes me think moose. And that's why I'm wondering if, like, is there some kind of, are they some kind of precursor to the moose?
Making it about the same weight as the heaviest horse breeds. And of course, it had antlers to match this size. And they alone could be more than 2 humans across in width. And were also surprisingly heavy, being up to 40 kilograms or 88 pounds. And this massive size, in both the antlers and body, meant that Megaloceros needed a gobsmacking amount of nutrition to support its development. And when its antlers were forming, it likely consumed over 1,300 grams of protein
So
per
it
day.
is a deer.
Talk about gains. So, while getting struck by this deer would have absolutely ruined your day, we're actually not 100% sure of its offensive capabilities.
Yeah, stronger. 100%. I'm thinking moose not only because of the size, because this ancient deer is basically the same size as a moose, but yeah, the antlers make me think, or make me think moose too. 100%, it is. And yeah, I mean, they're all part of the same genus. Who knows?
Due to the lack of fossil evidence displaying it. Though what we do know is that humans would once in a while prey on them, or at the very least, scavenge and process deceased individuals. However, despite them seemingly getting the short end of the stick with humans, this was still a very tough animal, and when you group it with the rest, you can see why Europe was not the best place to live, to say the least. And I didn't even mention the ostriches, water buffalo, or steppe bison running around too.
Whoa! Hold up! Sure. The ostriches were this fucking big 26,000 years ago? Holy crap! Yeah. That's a big birdie. And ostriches now can be pretty fucking scary. Shit.
Water buffalo or steppe bison running around too. Because you know, those ostriches, they don't mess around. You also have to remember that things don't necessarily have to be large or carnivorous to have done you in.
I imagine they probably do,
Atanashi. Of
Atanashi.
Smaller oddities as well, which can be equally ferocious in their own way. For one, there were giant porcupines walking around that probably could have poked you to death if you were unlucky, or you could have stumbled into Trogontherium, a plump, cheetah-sized beaver that had large teeth perfectly designed for gouging.
Cheetah-sized beaver. Jesus. Can you imagine the size of the teeth on that son of a bitch? Or, yes, Cortunus, the tail slap? Holy shit!
And when used defensively, could have easily bitten clean through a leg. And did I mention that they also happen to be partly terrestrial, having had adaptations designed for literal running? But of all the oddballs, the king and most impressive was the otter Megalynhydrus. To see this extinct otter, you'd have to have traveled to Sardinia, something not...
I'm sorry? Ancient
Those giant
otters were
sunbitches can build Hoover Dam.
Ancient otters were as big as fucking hammerhead sharks? If this is true to size, holy shit! That would be terrifying. Good fucking
Sardinia,
lord!
something not super hard considering how low the sea levels were. On this island, otters were king, and up to 4 kinds are known of, with Megalynhydrus being the biggest and baddest. And actually, it may have been the largest otter, and therefore musclet of all time, depending on who you ask. As when the tail is included, this otter measured up to 3 meters, or 10 feet. And considering how dominant the living otters already are, paleontologists reckon that Megalynhydrus was one of the island's undisputed apex predators.
Wow.
However, thankfully for those on top of the island, its diet was seafood heavy, with a focus on bottom-dwelling fish and crustaceans.
Oh, that's
and because
good.
of its highly aquatic lifestyle, Megalynhydrus evolved some fascinating features, including a slightly flattened tail that would have aided in locomotion. And despite living relatively remotely, there is a good chance that this otter met humans, as it possibly survived until the Holocene. So that's all to say, humans had some strange stuff to deal with no matter where they went in Europe,
Eh.
which along with the weather and violence with other humans, ended up taking a major toll on European populations, a toll potentially identified by a recent study. The researchers estimated that 30,000 years ago, before the last glacial maximum was underway, there were about 330,000 humans living within Europe. And then following the end of the glacial maximum, only 130,000 were left standing, indicating a population loss of 60%, making this time period even more catastrophic to human numbers in Europe than the Black.
Okay, I'm sorry. What is this? What is this drawing? You've got snow right here, but you have rain and thunder and grasslands here, and you have a woman wearing a little, deerskin dress, walking barefoot through the snow. What the fucking made this piece of art? I appreciate thunder snow as a thing, but I only see snow here. Unless this is supposed to be sand. I suppose this could be sand and not snow, and it's and whoever did the coloring on this didn't color it quite right. That could be. That whoever did this piece of art didn't get the coloring of this sandbank quite properly.
Catastrophic to human numbers in Europe than the Black Death was. The study also found that during the coldest moments of this period, only 36% of the continent would have been suitable for human life. And that's not even factoring in any competition or if suitable prey was present. So suffice to say...
Wait, did she? On this foot we have looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Looks like 5 toes here, and we can't really see all of her toes because of positioning here. This looks like she actually did have 5 toes. If we're going by what I'm guessing is like the tops, the white is the tops, looks like 5 toes. Thank you, Bobcat.
Only 36% of the continent would have been suitable for human life. And that's not even factoring in any competition or if suitable prey was present. So suffice to say, you had to be on a whole different level of toughness to make it through this period in one piece.
No. No. I'm calling bullshit on this. I'm calling bullshit on a single human taking up a spear at a charging cave rhino, or a charging woolly rhino, and being able to do that. I'm sorry. If that did work, the human that just did that is dead. He was right in the rhino's face. That rhino just obliterated him. Like, maybe the spear hit. If it hit perfectly in the eye to pierce the brain, that human is dead.
Fun fact. The most common hunting weapon for this period was the thrusting spear, not a throwing spear.
Well, yeah, Leo, I mean, we're seeing that right here. The way this is charged, the way he charged it, boom, he just got taken out.
This period
He
in
did.
one piece. And yet, humans did. And not only did they survive, but they kind of ended up taking over the whole thing, outperforming other predators and learning to hunt virtually every animal, eventually playing at least a partial hand in many of their extinctions, which really just goes to show how hardcore we humans can be. Thanks for watching,
my God,
and
really?
until next time.
Wait. Yeah, it goes to show how hardcore humans can be. Followed up with this stupidity from the office.
We humans can be. Thanks for watching, and until next time on ExtinctZoo.
It's possible, Zed. Maybe I am. I'm not sure. Oh, God. That was fascinating. That was certainly interesting. Yeah,